God damn it.
It's did it again?
Nope, we're good.
All right. Oh, shit. Hell yeah. I see a red dot next to your name. It's a good thing it's not on your forehead. Because.
Welcome to the Sacred Time Podcast. Sorry, I just had a spark plug blow.
Yeah.
And I breathed in the fumes from it. Sorry.
It's dangerous, man. You gotta be careful about that.
Yeah, it hurts my throat. Because it's spark plug fumes. Welcome to the Sacred Time Podcast. My name is Dennis Kaminsky. Joining me, as always, my co-host, Marie Starr. And I guess we'll jump right into the first conversation. Maurice?
Real quick, it's spark plugs in a car, so just wanted to throw that out there.
How the fuck did that get in my room then?
I don't know, man.
Holy shit.
Maybe it came with the hat. I don't know that. They're Red Wings. It's not the Pistons. And anyway, first topic.
This is going off the rails. Maybe we should have stopped doing a podcast a long time ago.
Probably.
Yeah, our apologies for taking a break for like the people who do listen and shit like that. We didn't mean to take a break. Just sometimes we fall asleep and we don't wake up when we're supposed to have been awake. That's mainly spark plug related issues. And then, yeah, besides that, we had some technical issues and stuff like that. To be honest, we don't even know if this episode we're recording is going to go out. So if you're hearing the words that I'm saying, that's a positive sign. And hopefully we can keep it frequent going forward next week. But consistency is not our issue. Oh, Jesus Christ, that spark plug really got me fucked up. Give me a second. Consistency has been an issue, and we are trying to work on that, both in our personal lives and our professional lives. So I'm trying to drink more water, trying to inhale less spark plug fumes. Maurice, you got anything you're trying to change in your life? Didn't Lent start this month, or am I just saying shit?
Yeah, I think that's usually in the springtime. Like, It varies. It depends on, I think, whenever Ash Wednesday is. I haven't done anything so like that in a while. But, no, I'm saying I'm the same way with you, though. Trying to just get better every day, drink more water, working out more. Yeah, that's about it. So.
Understood completely. Yeah, have healthy lives with your communications and all those good things. Take care of yourself. This right here is me laying down the road work for a segue into our first conversation. Simone Biles, is she a joke? No, I was joking.
No.
No, obviously, I think it's really interesting. I'm just going to jump right into it.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, obviously, we could sit here and have a 45-minute conversation about why we agree with her or why we would disagree with her or whatever the case would be, but I think that conversation has been had enough. I think what's more interesting to me is the most relevant pieces of news that have come from the Olympics so far, or the Olympic process so far, have all been non-competitive, or they haven't really had anything to do with the people competing. Like, obviously, before the Olympics started, the biggest story regarding the Olympics was the ban on the caps for a certain type of hair, and what was her name? Sha'Carri Richardson, correct? The track runner who smoked weed and got popped for it, so wasn't able to compete. Obviously, the fact that the Olympics had been pushed back a year because of COVID. Ah, there I go. It's going to be like that in and out, I assume. With that being said, though, it's interesting to me that now that we're in the Olympic process, the biggest story from the Olympics has been a competitor choosing not to compete. Also, I looked into the numbers a little bit because I was interested. 16.9 million viewers for the opening ceremony here in Tokyo versus, I believe, 26 million in Rio de Janeiro in 2016. And before that, in 2012 in London, there were 40 million viewers. So the interest in the Olympics has been dropping drastically. And I do think the news stories that we're seeing coming out about the Olympics have been very indicative of that. People are kind of talking more about the things happening around the Olympics versus the actual events themselves in the games. And I have a lot of theories as to why that is the case. I'm putting most of my blame on the Peacock app because it sucks, and it's a stupid name for an app, but mainly because it sucks. I'm not at all a fan of Peacock. Go ahead.
Just for context, those numbers you gave about the viewers, that's from the U.S.,
Opening
right?
ceremony, the U.S. viewers, yes. I do actually
Okay.
believe, because of the time zone difference, that obviously it's performing incredibly strong in Japan, that they're hosting the Olympics. Why wouldn't they watch? But
Right.
it's also doing really well in either Australia or New Zealand. I don't remember which country specifically, but because of the time zone differences, which is probably another part of the reason that the viewership is down this year and interest is killed a little bit. That's what I had a few theories I was going to get to. But before we get into that, any thoughts in general on the Olympics? It could be sports related, non-sports related, but before we jump into the full conversation about whether or not it matters as much as it used to, do you have any opinions on the things that have been going on? It's been a while since we've had a chance to talk on here.
You know, I think with the Olympics, you got all different kinds of viewers. There's so many different sports and so many different categories within some certain sports that people are either fans of because they've witnessed it um, personally. Like, it's real easy to be a fan of like track and field when that's a sport that almost every high school has. It's relatively speaking cheap. If Even if you don't even have a track, I mean, I've gone to a school at one point where our track was so bad, all of our meets were at whatever respective school we played against. So it's not even one of those things where you got to have a nice court or you got to have the equipment. You kind of just got to have uniforms and everyone gets their own spikes
Mm-hmm.
or shoes if you're doing any of the field events. So that's always the ones that piques everyone's interest. They're uh, probably draws the most views in my uh, from what I know. Point what I'm saying is there's a lot there that even if I'm watching, I don't fully understand. So something, for instance, like the air rifle, I don't really fully get how the competition works and how the points are conducted. Yet, usually the thing that draws people to watch events that they normally don't watch are the stories behind the people competing. And I think that's the biggest thing you get from the Olympics is mostly just that. It's um, the interest really falls behind those storylines. So outside of that, though, I mean, I don't really know what I'm watching half the time in terms of the other sports out there. So
No, I think I agree, and that's one of the things that I was going to jump into with my theories was the celebrity aspect of the Olympics is generally the biggest draw, right? So when Michael Phelps was competing in his final Olympics, overwhelming the marketing in the United States, because it's different from country to country. Obviously, whatever events they have a superstar in, the marketing in that country is going to advertise that person. So if there's like, a weightlifter from Canada, then in Canada there's a really good chance that there's going to be a stronger emphasis on the weightlifting events versus like the track and field where they're going to get smoked. And Jamaica, they're going to be pushing the shit out of Usain Bolt. It's going to be like that, right? So, and honestly, in the United States, Usain Bolt became quite a popular figure as well. So we were advertising his events as well, even though he wasn't competing for the United States. And I think that that's one of the things that this Olympic ceremony is really struggling with is the face of it is Simone Biles. And like we said, the biggest story revolving the Olympics right now is the fact that she chose not to compete. So, like, obviously, on a basic level, if the biggest superstar chooses not to compete on the highest stage, the viewership is probably going to be down in that stage. Do you know what I mean? Because why wouldn't it be? For the last 2 or 3 months, every time you see an Olympic commercial, the person who they're putting at the forefront was specifically her. You know what I mean? And if she's not even competing in her event, obviously the interest is going to go down a little bit. I don't know if we're not deep enough into the Olympics for there to have been any like really big, remarkable stories. I don't really know if there have been gold medals in a lot of the really key events yet. Like you said, like the 100-meter dash, or I don't really know what's popular in the Olympics, to be completely honest. I feel like it changes every year based off of the competitors. But there's a time zone difference as well to be taken into consideration. They're airing much later at night than they normally would be. Also, television ratings in general have been consistently down for the last 4 or 5 years because of the advancements in streaming. And that's another thing right there. Peacock isn't the most popular streaming service. So the fact that that's where the broadcast is overwhelmingly taking place, it's not going to be as relevant. I mean, I'm not saying that this would be a good move on their end, but if they were airing on Netflix right now, I feel like more people would be talking about little side things, right? Because then even if you don't want to watch the Olympics, if you just so happen to stumble into it, because that's one of the things that I was getting ready to jump into after this, I don't think most people mark their calendars for the Olympics. So it is really interesting to see the interest go down. Like, to be honest, I think I forgot that the Olympics were going on until I heard Simone Biles wasn't going to choose to compete. Then I was like, oh, shit. They were, like, in today's final. And I was like, oh, they're doing the gold stuff already and the gymnastics? Like, the Olympics is already, like, we're going into it like that already? I remember working at the movie theater a few years ago. I downloaded the NBC Sports app, and I was going to watch as many of the Olympic events as I possibly could. This was in 2016. And I wanted to watch the boxing and the judo and the taekwondo and all of the wrestling because I was getting really into MMA at the time, so I wanted to watch like an individual version of each of those. And I went to work after the opening ceremony aired, and I started talking to people like I was excited to get into it. And I'm not even exaggerating, probably more than 85-90% of the people in there had no idea that the Olympics were going on, nor did they have any interest in the events at all whatsoever. And those were overwhelmingly young people that I were working with. Most of the people who were excited for it or knew that it was going on were on a little bit of the older end. I don't know if I have the rating demographics to break that down, but I don't think young people are interested in the Olympic athletes as much as the older people are. But then a lot of the Olympic athletes have an insane following, so it's a little interesting to me to kind of see how this all works out. Because to my knowledge, Simone Biles is, 20, 21? Seems like she would speak specifically to a younger demographic.
She might be. I thought she was 24. I might be wrong.
She might be older than that. Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure. I don't remember how old she was when she won the gold the last time. I assume she was a little bit younger end. But no, it's interesting. I don't know. I don't really care either. So I just think it's an interesting thing. Like, here we are a week or two into the Olympic process, and really the only conversation people are having about the Olympics is, hey, did you hear that one girl decided not to compete? And it's like, yeah, hey, I hate her. Yeah. And the other side's like, no, I love her. I think she's good. I think not competing's really good. And they're like, no, listen, your country, you spend a lot of time to build a country, okay? So when you got people who can be in the country good, you go and you do it. And then the other people are like, no, sometimes I don't want to go to work and I feel bad and my day isn't going good. And if I wouldn't hurt myself making pizza. And I don't really know what's happening I don't know what's going on, if I'm being honest. Those are just some of the tweets that I've read.
Yeah, this sounds like something from Twitter. I mean, I think you see it in the media too, where unless you go to certain outlets that are doing like the full coverage of the Olympics, the only time you really hear anything is when it's praising someone who's won a gold medal or who's broken a record. Unfortunately, there are people who place in their own respective events, and it may only be silver or it may only be bronze, and it's almost taken to a point where, like, oh, if it's not gold, it's not worth mentioning, or if it's not gold, it's not worth celebrating. And that's terrible because you went to the Olympics and got a medal, period. Like, that's an incredible feat to obtain. So it's similar, in my opinion, I guess, to sports in general. If you don't have an understanding of it, you don't really care. And the only time you probably care is when there's something that you can try to kind of have a stake in and you're in the heat to win it all. It's like when people who aren't, I don't know, let's give an example. If you live in Milwaukee and you were never a Bucks fan, well, now when the Bucks are in the finals and they're almost about to win the championship, you're probably tuning in a lot more because you have a stake in that. But if you've never really paid attention to basketball, maybe you were just hockey, maybe you were just football, whatever the case was.
He's a Packer fan.
You're a casual viewer. So, again, you're going to tune in only when it's like, oh, now I can have bragging rights in this sport that I really don't know about. And with the Olympics, it's always kind of felt like that for me growing up. Is most of the time I heard people, only time I heard it, the only Olympian I've ever heard about outside of Simone Biles on a constant basis, you just said him, Michael Phelps. That's it. Now, here's this other lady, and I do apologize if maybe her name is wrong, but I know her last name is Ledecky. I think it's Katie Ledecky. but she's an incredible swimmer. And I only know that because I seen something where they put up like the top 23 times in her event, and she owns them all. But this is the first time I'm hearing about her, and I don't know how that works outside of, again, the only times you hear about these things is when it's something to celebrate. I'm sure when she was just still working to get to that position, however long that's taken, I mean, you'd have to really look out there to know about her to find it. So it is what it is.
I have two solutions to make swimming more interesting, by the way, while we're on the subject. One, take away the names at the bottom of the lanes. That way, the whole time you don't know who the fuck's winning, and you just find out at the end and there's like a big reveal. Because that's the thing that I don't know who's who. The only reason I know who's who is because at the bottom of the lanes, they'll have the graphic underneath that says, like, Phelps, lane 5. Make people hear it one time before it starts. They have to remember which lane is which. And then they're just watching the whole time, like, which one was Phelps in again? The middle one? Is he the front middle one or the second middle one? Dude, if he's not in the second middle one, I think he's losing right now really bad. And then at the end, you're like, oh, no, that was him the whole time. Holy shit, that was really fun. Otherwise, it's just people swimming. There's nothing against people swimming. It's incredibly impressive athletically, but I don't think it's ever going to be a big ratings draw. To that point,
well,
go ahead.
I was just about to say, I think what you just said would do the opposite. Because if you know who you're looking out.
Singer.
No.
Like, dude, that's Donnie Wahlberg. That's fucking Donnie. Holy shit, that wasn't Donnie Wahlberg. Could you imagine that? You're like, Gold.
Well, they give you.
Phelps got beat. Phelps got beat. And you're like, oh, no, he didn't. He won again. That was exciting for a second, though. I thought he got beat.
I'm not going to say there's some flaws in that idea, but, you know, maybe we can work on it. Throw a pitch to the NBC. Since, I mean, they're the ones that put it on there, right?
Yeah, it's NBC. They have exclusive rights to it, which is why I said I'm not trying to knock Peacock, but Peacock isn't a very good app.
No, it's not. We had that conversation when we were watching the wrestling stuff. Like,
yeah,
it's
horribly unorganized, and yeah, I'm not a fan. But to that point, though, I was interested. I looked up the Olympic Games, and I went to the news section because I was interested in seeing what the biggest stories that are currently going on in the Olympics are while we're having this conversation. Because, you know, if we're naive to the conversation, we can just Google it, and then we'll know everything. So news about the Olympics, the first story that comes up is it's an Olympics live update, so it's just got the stuff that's happening, and it's telling you who's winning. The second story from Fox News and CNN, so they've got competing articles. Why some Olympic athletes have to sell their gold medals, and then the other one next to it is how much are Olympic medals worth? So the most relevant stories to the Olympics right now are how much do those things cost?
Well, you want to know why it's relevant? Because they don't even get, my understanding of it is correct, they don't really get, like, sponsored to go. It's kind of on them. Like,
no, that's another issue that the Olympics has, is a lot of these athletes work their ass off and then they never make a cent from the sport that they're in.
None. Especially the events that aren't popular where, hey, if you're a track star, you're going to be able to get some endorsement from, like, a Nike or somebody. If you're throwing shot put, maybe. That was something I recently seen. I did recently see a Nike ad where it was a female shot putter. But that was the first time I've ever seen someone doing an event like that being sponsored.
Do you want to throw a
I'm
ball
sure
really
it's still
far?
not...
A heavy-ass ball?
Hey, man, it's a lot of technique.
For sure. I remember. I did that one in middle school. As you can tell, I'm not really built for it, but I had good technique, so they let me do my thing. I lost because, again, technique only takes you so far when everybody's 300 pounds that you're competing against.
I mean, a little bit. You got to... What is that called? Punching above your weight?
Yeah, I was getting my ass kicked. I ran the hurdles, too. Yeah. And it wasn't a speed thing. It was a technique thing. Because when you run the hurdles, a lot of people try to leap over the hurdles instead of hurdling over the hurdles. There's like a way to do it where you're basically gliding over them. And I was running them one time, and I would always finish like third, fourth place out of like 5 people, right? Because there would always be 1 or 2 kids who would try to jump over that thing and fall over. But we were competing against... I don't remember what high school it was, but they had incredibly fast athletes. So we moved our best sprinter into the 200-meter hurdle with me. And I was pissed because I was the only person competing for the school, so I was going to finish first in the school. I was going to finish last in the event for sure out of like 6 people, but I was going to finish first in the school, so there's wins there somewhere. You got to just find the positives in things. So this dude's running, and I'm like, I'm never going to get to run the hurdles again because even though he doesn't know how to hurdle these, he's going to fucking kill me. So I swear to God, this is what happened. I think there were 4 or 5 of us running. One kid fell over the first hurdle. It was down to me and the other 2 kids. So the guy in my school and then their fastest runner there. Or 2 of their fastest runners, I'm sorry, because there were 5 of us. So I was in 4th place because the one kid was struggling to get over the hurdles. And once you fuck up once or twice, you kind of have to like stop running and like, okay, and then get over them. But he's running, and the guy in my school who's fast doesn't know how to run the hurdles, so he's leaping over every single one of them. And at the second to last hurdle, his foot clips it because he was jumping over them, so he's starting to gas, so his explosiveness was dying hurdle to hurdle. And he fell, and he was tall, and with both of his hands, he brought down everybody else. And I swear to God, I ran past everybody and glided, and I was like, fuck yeah! It was the happiest moment of my life. It was a tainted win in some people's eyes, but I had good technique, so you can suck mine.
Hey, you were just taking advantage of opportunity presented to you.
Hell yeah, man. That's like what they say about white people, and it's a true stereotype. I was like, all right.
I don't know.
No, I don't think that's true.
I don't think that's at all what they say about white people.
Yeah, we colonized.
That's a whole nother conversation.
I know. I didn't do that. Some people fell, and I ran past them.
All right. No, but
Michaela Skinner won a silver medal. Raven Saunders raised an overhead X on the podium in the most high-profile protest yet at the Tokyo Olympics. Belarus, there's a sprinter who won't return home after speaking out against the coaches at the Olympics, so somebody's in trouble, I think. The U.S.-Canada women's Olympic beach volleyball match marred by controversial challenge reversal. Furious Twitter responds. Holy shit, Twitter's mad about something. And then some stuff about the U.S. basketball team and a story about sportsmanship. Sorry, I just wanted to finish that off real quick so we could move on.
Yeah. I mean, all in all, I had much respect to all the athletes that participate in the Olympics and dedicate themselves to getting to that caliber level to compete against the world. Unfortunately, I think it's kind of similar to other sports where you got that overhead committee and the way they try to organize it and get things put together. It's like it always just doesn't seem it works out the right way. Like it's a great idea for what it's supposed to be. It's just in actual practice, there's always those caveats and dark ends of it. But like I said, athletes, they're killing it. Love it. All that good shit.
My final statement on the Olympics is, what hurt the Olympics for me the most is throughout my entire life, outside of the Olympic season, the only stories I have ever read about the Olympics have been negative towards the athletes. The system abuses these athletes, it seems like, in a lot of cases, sometimes literally. And I think when you see a lot of those kinds of stories, you hear about so many of these people hitting the absolute peak in their sport, and there's that moment where there are millions of people at home watching them, and they're honoring their country, and they're celebrating them, and then you find out 10 years later that they're homeless because they never made a dime from any of that situation at all whatsoever. Meanwhile, NBC has like a $10 billion exclusive broadcasting deal with the Olympic ceremony, so I don't know. I think when you see shit like that so much, it's kind of hard to feel like the people are actually getting anything out of it other than a holy shit, good job. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and that's why it's cool when you have people like Simone Biles or Usain Bolt or Michael Phelps or Gabby Douglas or any of these people who hit an extra level of fame and they're able to translate that to, like you said, some sponsorship deals or some actual money outside of the Olympic Games. And all things considered, it is what it is. Corporations have a long storied history of not giving people their proper compensation. And we are gliding through these segues today. Maurice, I'm going to toss it to you for the next story.
So I'm assuming we're talking about the lawsuit that has came to fruition. Scarlett Johansson is suing Disney due to their release of Black Widow, both in the theater and through streaming. Specifically citing that her profits were hurt by the fact that they did release it simultaneously on the streaming platform, and I believe her incentives were tied squarely with the box office.
Yes. So the deal that they made with Disney, and a lot of actors have deals like this, or I guess high-profile actors have deals like that, where there's like a certain amount of compensation based off of the performance at the box office. So to go back a little bit, in the beginning of the year, Warner Media announced that on HBO Max they were going to be doing same-day releases for their films in theaters. So the movies that they advertised, like the strongest ones, were Kong vs. Godzilla, Dune, The Matrix, like the new Space Jam movie, Judas and the Black Messiah, and a bunch of other new movies like that. And the idea was, because of the pandemic and because of the uncertainty around whether or not we're going to be able to get people into theaters, rather than not releasing these, we're going to use these films that are giant blockbuster films to boost our streaming numbers. So in a year that we don't have to lose profit, right? So we got fucked last year because we didn't get to release any of our major pictures. So this year we're going to put all of our big draws on our app specifically, as opposed to putting them in theaters. They ended up settling on a same-day thing, so they gave people the option where if you're comfortable and you want to go to the movie theater, then you're more than welcome to go. If you choose to stay home, you also have the option to watch the film. And a lot of people were really excited about that, but I was very upset when I read that news, because these films are absolutely dependent on their box office numbers. And the film specifically that gave me the most concern with that was Dune, the Denis Villeneuve film. It's a film coming out later this year. I'm excited about it. I hope it does incredibly well. It's supposed to be a part of a big series, but after one film, because of the same-day release thing, there's a really strong chance that its box office numbers aren't going to be as strong as they possibly could be, and it's going to hurt the franchise moving forward. It's an original, not an original thing. It's based off a book, but it's a new thing. We don't want to get too deep into that. Disney countered that situation by providing a same-day release, but you have to pay for it. So this way they also get a financial compensation. So they're not just getting subscribers driven to their services, they are also getting like a flat fee so you can unlock the film early, essentially. But it is also still available in theaters. Nothing is wrong with any of that as long as everybody involved is aware of what's going on a financial end, right? Because obviously when we're having this conversation, we're exclusively having it from the perspective of the studio, which is Disney or Warner or whatever the case is. When a film is made, it doesn't just benefit the studios, though. It benefits a lot of other people, and it benefits you more the bigger role that you have on a film. This is I pulled up an article for point of reference on the other end, and she started talking in my ear while I was talking, and I was tripping. So give me a second.
No problem.
Could you hear that?
No.
Okay,
no,
so I just sound crazy. There was a woman in my head. But basically, certain actors and certain directors have a clause in their contract that they will receive a certain percentage of the box office, or whatever the case is, however they negotiate the wording. A high-profile example of this would be Sean Connery was initially offered the role of Gandalf in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and he turned it down, and based off of the math, he would have made like $250 million on that franchise had he signed on. But he didn't understand the script, but because he was such a high-profile actor, they went all out to get him, and they gave him a lot of box office compensation. Another high-profile example of that would be Matt Damon with the Avatar franchise. He turned down a fuck ton of money, and because of his performance at the box office, it wasn't just that fee to take the role, he ended up turning down a lot of the back-end stuff. In the Marvel universe, a lot of these actors have incredibly beneficial contracts to themselves, except for the fact that they get fucked over. And Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth and Scarlett Johansson and all of these people who have any leverage at all whatsoever, they usually get a little bit of a back-end compensation. Another example of this would be when Warner announced that they were doing the HBO Max same-day release thing, they had to pay Gal Gadot and Patty Jenkins the fee that they would have received on the back end had their film performed well. Considering that the first Wonder Woman made over $1 billion, it's safe to assume that this is going to be a profitable film, right? Obviously, the reviews ended up turning out poor for it, but you can't really exclusively chalk it up to that, considering that there was an option for people to watch it at home. So instead of alienating those two people specifically, they supposedly paid them out for what they would have made had the film been considered a billion-dollar success. So they avoided this issue completely. They paid them what they thought would have been the case. Scarlett Johansson is suing because when Disney released Black Widow, they released it the same day on Disney+. It performed incredibly well on Disney+, and its drop-off from week to week was one of the biggest in film history. I don't remember the exact number, but I believe it dropped off like 75-80% from its opening weekend to its follow-up weekend. That was a combination of mediocre reviews, the film being accessible for people pirating it because of its availability at home media already. It's a lot easier to pirate a film at home than it is to pirate a film in theaters because you're talking about like a shitty cell phone camera versus I just have to record this on my television in some way, shape, or form.
And probably a computer.
Exactly, and you can pull a digital file and all of those other things. It's a lot easier for the film to get out in that way. So she's claiming that Disney essentially shafted her $50 million because of their decision-making. And to my knowledge, the contract was signed much prior to the pandemic, because you got to remember, this film was supposed to come out like 2 months after the pandemic hit, but that means it was shot months before that. So when they negotiated the contract, she was supposed to receive box office compensation that she did not. And this is a complete overgeneralization for somebody who has absolutely no real knowledge of the inside workings of Hollywood, right? This is all just based off of what I'm reading. But with that being said, she's reporting they cost her up to $50 million in box office. She's going at Disney. She's probably not going to win. A lot of this is just a PR thing, but it's working very successfully, and it's fascinating to watch, and I'm a very big fan of this, and I'm going to toss it back to you.
Yeah, man, it's exactly like you said. Like, unfortunately, Disney rarely loses, and that just goes to show how much of a evil world taking over type of corporation they are. But anyway, the main thing is
so
still
not
just
a fan
the conversation. I'm not a fan of a lot of their practices, yeah.
Understood.
And a lot of the recent movie stuff, it seems very there's no magic with Disney movies anymore. Ooh. Unfortunately. I said it.
Raven Simone took that wand home with her. The one they did in the commercials in the corner.
Yeah, I don't even know if they still do that.
No, they shouldn't.
Well, yeah, probably not. It's like I said, everything is not.
I'll keep talking. That spark plug's acting up. I gotta make sure it doesn't blow.
No, more seriously.
It's gonna blow.
You were talking about the PR of all of this. Also being talked about is the fact that Emma Stone's thinking to possibly do a similar type of lawsuit for what happened with Cruella. And I think ultimately what this might potentially do, depending on the outcome of these, suits, is just change the format of what they're going to do with movie releases going forward. It's one of those things, like, even if they win, unless they win like resoundingly and it's in a way that sets a precedence where they could just keep doing it that way, you're going to probably want to roll that back and just avoid the problem altogether. And that's usually Disney's move with something. If there's a question of like, oh, this is going to look bad for us, they just do a full rollback or whatever the case is to make it look like, hey, we're not that guy, we're not that company you thought we were when you saw we made these developments and you didn't agree with it. I don't think there's anybody that's sitting there really not on the side of Scarlett Johansson with this. I don't think anyone that really sees it for what it is. I'm sure there's some folks that are like, oh, she makes enough money anyway.
Yeah,
but it's not. It's principle.
There's a blowback on her as well a little bit. I don't think anybody's supporting Disney though. I think the people who aren't in her favor are just not in her favor, but they don't necessarily support Disney in this situation. What I was going to ask you was, or I guess before I ask you, I will say it's going to be interesting to see how this whole thing develops, because it seems like, to my knowledge, with HBO Max, and I'm only referencing them because I think what they did was almost worse than what Disney did. but I'm not 100% sure because I don't know how that works. If it works out so that 100% of the profits from people purchasing the film on the streaming service go towards only Disney, and that was their like way around having to do that stuff with Scarlett Johansson, that bothers me a lot more, and Disney's obviously a lot worse. I don't know how that works, though. I do know that the film underperformed by a lot, and I'm not saying it would have been a major success, but circumstantially, she has a hell of an argument. But Disney's also in a unique position, and that's why I referenced HBO Max as well. They only made the decision to release these films same day because the pandemic. This isn't, to my knowledge, this was not in the plans prior to there being a complete shortage of movie theaters available for these films to be housed in. A lot of studios have been incredibly patient. A fantastic example would be the new Bond film. That was scheduled to come out last year, and that film keeps getting pushed and pushed and pushed, and to my knowledge, it hasn't come out yet. Maybe I just completely missed it, but I don't know what's going on with it. I don't know the date, you know what I mean? I remember Tenet came out, but this isn't going to be an issue in a few months, we assume. Obviously, nobody knows what's going to happen with the pandemic. Nobody knows what's going to happen with the restrictions and the mandates and the capacities in the movie theaters and so on and so forth. But a lot of these films are almost being sacrificed circumstantially, and this isn't me taking the studio sides. I think this is just me trying to like give a fair objective view of the situation. A lot of these films are being sacrificed circumstantially, and it's interesting to see the actors step up as quickly as they have, because it feels like this was almost more of a trial run than it was a one-off. But I am interested in seeing what the next year or two hold, because if the studios continue to put a really strong emphasis on shortening the exclusivity at the box office in order to maximize the actual streaming service itself, because that goes directly to them as opposed to sharing it with the distributors and all that other stuff, what does that mean for superstars? Right? Because this is not an issue for actors who do not have a name like Scarlett Johansson. They do not have the power to fight against something like this. For example, all of the people who take roles on Netflix, they would rather obviously take a film role, right, that's being shown in theaters. They would obviously like, if they're the lead especially, a cut in the box office. That'd be great. But a lot of them are up-and-coming actors who have to just take what they get. So when you're in a world where Disney Plus needs a certain amount of content a month to fill the needs of its subscribers, a lot of these actors, Tom Hiddleston, Elizabeth Olsen, Anthony Mackie, Sebastian Stan, I'm specifically naming the Marvel people, they knew their shit was going straight to Disney Plus, and they still signed on for it, right? Scarlett Johansson's circumstances are obviously a lot different, but because this is happening, do you think Disney and all of these other studios moving forward are going to then now less emphasize theatrical releases? Can we find people who are willing to work with us who can draw to our streaming services specifically so we don't have to deal with any other issues like this? And it's the issue specifically being that we have to pay these actors on the back end, right? Because for more context, this isn't even an issue exclusive to Disney. Gerard Butler just recently filed a lawsuit in regards to money that he feels he's owed from a film from about 8 or 9 years ago. Olympus Has Fallen. So this isn't even exclusive to the streaming situation, right? This is clearly an issue that the studios have been trying to find a way to navigate around for a while. Why would you try to share the pie with as many people as possible? And if an actor gets too much negotiating power, they almost become more important than the studio and all of those other things themselves, and I think that that's something that they try to prevent from happening. And it's interesting to see in this situation what that's going to mean in like a year and a half, 2 years for the decisions that they make with productions. Because a lot of the films that we're going to see having this argument for in the next year or so, these are films that have been just sitting on the shelf for a few years now, right? Like Jungle Cruise, I believe, is coming out this weekend with Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt. He is literally the biggest star in Hollywood, and his film is also going to have a same-day release on Disney. But to my understanding, they've already worked that out financially. because of who he is. And they want to maintain a positive relationship because you don't want to alienate The Rock. You know what I mean? Like, he's way too big of a star, and if you have an agreement with The Rock on Disney's end, that's only beneficial to you. Spark plug is drying out my mouth.
Yeah.
Basically, though, this is a very long-winded way of saying the film industry is in a very unique place right now, and it is slowly becoming the content industry. And that's what's really interesting to me about this situation specifically is this was a film, and I'm using those two different terms specifically because film does fall into the category of content, but not all content is film. So I want to specifically differentiate those two things. But this was a film shot for a standard film's theatrical release. And Disney found a way to make it both, right? Like, this is simultaneously a film experience and content exclusive to our streaming service. And that's something that, in this situation, the actor was willing to stand up with. And we're going to see stuff like this, I believe, with directors and other people as well. To my knowledge, there are a lot of people who don't like the way that the industry is moving. But now we're in a situation where they're still the platform, and the theaters aren't in a good place right now, and there is a variant traveling around with the pandemic, so we don't know how quickly things are going to go back to normal. And a lot of these films that were shot over the last few years are probably going to have releases like this. This is probably not the last time we're going to see something like this, unless they can really get a lot of momentum behind the perception of this lawsuit. And with it being Disney and the lack of repercussions that Disney has had for the last, 20, 30 years of decision making in film specifically, obviously, we can go into a way deeper conversation about a lot of other things. But I'm nervous for the future of film. I'm nervous for films like Dune that are being released on HBO Max that probably would have had a very strong performance at the box office. And I'm assuming it's a good film because of the people involved. Obviously, it's possible that it goes in a different direction, but it sucks to see films like this being sacrificed at a time where the film industry is already in a really challenging place, where there's not a lot of new original content, and this feels like a push in the wrong direction to me. Like, just the fact that we're having this conversation. I'm incredibly happy that she's speaking out against it, because I'm hoping that we can turn the tide back in the other direction a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Because a lot of these actors and actresses, to my knowledge, don't even like working for a lot of these big films. But they do it because that's where the money is at in their career. And now they're speaking out against the people who are paying them. Like, you're not even paying me what you're supposed to be paying me. Do you know what I mean? So that just goes to show you where the whole state of things are at. And I don't know, man. I try to be a positive person. I try to be an optimist. But with the decisions being made in Hollywood over the last few years, this is just a long spark plug rant. And my way of saying, like, this all feels like it's moving in a bad direction. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like it's going to be really hard to turn around, because we haven't even mentioned, and this is something that I wanted to ask you, and it was a really long way of getting into that. As a consumer, what are your personal thoughts on having these films and these giant pieces of content being brought to you at home? Like, how do you feel as a consumer about that? Were you somebody who took advantage of some of these same-day releases? Are you somebody who was excited about that going in? Like, what were your thoughts on the availability of these films given the state of the world?
I mean, ultimately, I definitely prefer watching films in the theater and in the theater. So, in terms of having it available at home, I mean, there were definitely some times where it was nice, and you could maybe use the word convenient, easily accessible. When if I got the HBO Max app and Tenet becomes available. Oh, well, I've always wanted to watch this movie. It wasn't a time where I felt comfortable going to see it in a movie theater, so now I could just watch this at home. That being said, I always looked at it as for the time kind of thing, not as something more long term going forward. But like you were just saying, there's been a lot of conversations that have been brought up, and a lot of stances taken with the film industry that makes you can't help but see it already. Like it's written in the stars that they're pushing to make this more of a streaming thing, because in all aspects outside of even just film, like you said, just content creation, the accessibility of you could pull your phone out and watch a movie. And if you, because we're talking about like watching it at home on the TV,
usually
for the folks that don't even have that,
tablets and laptops.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's in the same way how social media, I get quick access to it on my phone. If I'm on a trip and I'm like, you know what, I want to watch whatever's on the air flight, movie thing, if they got something like that, right? I'm just gonna pull out my phone and see what I got on the app. Oh, I can buy or pay $30 and I can see this new movie. There's some people who might be willing to do that. I don't know where exactly, because I still find the issue with streaming is just too much. It's the cable companies now, so I can't, me personally, I'm not trying to have every single platform available and have to pay monthly contributions to just have access, on top of now if I want to watch this content I gotta pay extra money. I feel like at that point I don't feel like I get my money's worth with it. The same way how going to a theater, I'm getting my money's worth, because concessions aside, I'm getting to sit in usually a luxury seat. I'm getting this big screen with this sound system tailored to what they're expecting the sound to be in the film. That's something that a lot of people, and understandably, if you're not maybe an enthusiast when it comes to film, it's not something you're maybe too particular about. But I don't think there's anyone who would argue that going to see a movie in a movie theater versus seeing it on your TV, the experience is always better in the movie theater. The TV aspect, again, just kind of comes down to maybe you have a nicer setup, and in most cases it's just the accessibility. You don't have to leave the house. You don't have to worry about this person on their cell phone the row in front of you, so you constantly got this light in your face. There's those aspects of it too, but all that to say, I mean, I don't care for the streaming much, really. I'm not going to sit here and say I haven't reaped the benefit of it, because again, Tenet's a perfect example of
that was
where
in theaters,
when I had
and then
the
it
time.
got put on streaming. It was done, and its theatrical release was over when it got put on theaters.
Right, but I'm speaking specifically to
just
at the time with the pandemic.
You would have seen it in theaters otherwise.
I would have seen it outside of the pandemic, but if because of the situation, I did benefit from the fact that it was put on to the streaming platform. That being said, going forward, I don't want that for everything. Like if movies become more available through streaming platforms that studios choose, in that sense, to like you said, with HBO and the direct ties they obviously have with Warner Bros., it makes sense Warner Bros. Putting their movies on there. But if their ideal is going forward, we're just going to use that every single time, nah, I'm not cool with that. I don't. It in my opinion defeats the purpose of kind of creating a film if you're going to watch it in that sense. It's almost similar to it's like having an old computer and playing like newer, like bleeding edge kind of game. It's like, yeah, you can play the game, but if you don't have the hardware to support it, you're not going to maybe get the full aspect of whatever game you're playing on. And to gamers out there, I'm speaking more to like a single player experience. Like, of course, you can play a lot of multiplayer games on a potato and it's fine because you can still point and shoot. But think of like I'm trying to think of it. You've played Spider-Man.
Yes.
I mean, that's a very good looking game. I liked a lot that they did with it. Imagine trying to play that Spider-Man game if they ported it to a PlayStation 1 or something.
It'd be even better.
It's not happening.
Oh.
It's
I
physically not happening.
Analogy.
But the point, I guess that more analogy I'm trying to say is film, of course, it's made for the big screen.
Yeah.
It's made for that sound. It's made for that environment. It's not made for the TV. And you could maybe work to try to make content that would work for that. Like, what's that one? No, they failed. So never mind, because they tried to make movies for the cell phone and that didn't work.
Oh, you're talking about Quibi?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
that was
know,
a nice try.
it's
Well, to your point,
nice try.
yeah, I think that the media doesn't always translate a lot of these, and that's what's really tough about this, and that's why I'm interested in seeing what the future looks like. If you can cut down your production budget, and you can just spend money on a big actor but not a big production, and it translates better to home entertainment versus theatrical entertainment, and you don't have to deal with a lot of these stupid conversations about like, okay, well now we got to pay Scarlett Johansson another $50 million on the back end. Why wouldn't you go in that direction? And like you said a minute ago,
Yeah.
you even if you didn't love it, even if you wished you were going to the theaters, to a degree you were reaping the benefits of having it available at home. Like for example, I'll give you, let's say next year we're going to release 12 films. Okay, I'm going to release one film a month for 12 months. Okay, and we're going to go with some giant films. So I know your favorite filmmaker right now is Edgar Wright. Okay, so let's say they're making Baby Driver 2. Okay. So Baby D2, because I don't got time to write it all out. I should probably do that. I'm going to do Driver. Baby D seemed like a bad idea. So that's in January. Yeah. February, we've got the new Christopher Nolan film. So Nolan, let's say he's doing a Western. We're just going to do 4 months because I don't want to go forever, and I write slow. So then we're going to have the next month, we're going to release, what's another thing you'd be interested in seeing, Maurice? Probably need some representation. I should have put that one in February. I fucked up.
Yeah,
Nolan's movies in March. Jordan Peele's movies in February.
Okay.
Would you go see a Jordan Peele movie in theater? Did you go see Us?
Yeah, I seen Us, and
then you and I went and saw Get Out as well.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm hip. I'm just having fun. April. We're going to do, what's a Marvel movie you'd be ecstatic about? Or what's a superhero concept that you would be like, oh shit, they're doing?
Static Shock.
Static Shock. Okay.
Let's go to the de facto, because right now there's not much.
All right, so we got Static Shock. So next year, there are 4 films being released that you cannot wait to go see. Baby Driver 2, Christopher Nolan Western, which I don't know if you'd be excited. I would be excited for that. A new Jordan Peele film. Doesn't he? He's actually got a new one coming out, doesn't he? What's that film called? With
yes,
it's Daniel Kaluuya again, correct?
Daniel Kaluuya. It has Steven Yeun. I don't know if you've watched his recent movie. It's a good ass movie.
I've heard nothing but good things about it, but I haven't seen it yet.
He was also from Walking Dead.
Yeah, I remember him from there.
And I'm forgetting the big. There's a big female actress in it too. I'm forgetting.
There are female actresses?
Yeah. If you didn't know, the one we were just talking about suing Disney. But I'm actually pulling it up right now because I'm blanking on the name.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead. Do you know what the name of the film is?
Nope, that's the name of the film.
Okay.
And Keke Palmer.
Keke Palmer.
Which,
all right.
I mean, I guess she's
Keke
not
Palmer.
A huge female actress, but I like her.
Yeah, I like Keke Palmer too.
And it's called Nope.
Nope. All right, so next year we've got Baby Driver 2, Christopher Nolan's Western, Jordan Peele's Nope, and the Static Shock film. All right? We are still in a weird state with the pandemic. All 4 of these films are available for you at home. How many of these films are you going to go out of your way to go in theaters to pay to go see? Honestly. Not taking the side of film, like legitimately. You got 4 of these films. How many of these films are you going to go see based off of your viewing habits over the last few years? So things that are relevant to you in life and so on and so forth.
I mean, okay, I want to make sure I'm not going too far into it because it's like there's a lot of thoughts I have currently about the pandemic and the ongoings of different regulations right now. That's a whole nother conversation. But so just to make sure I got the right frame, it's kind of like if these films were coming out in the next 4 months.
Yeah,
like
or so.
From right now.
Or so. Yep. This is next year's release. So we don't know what's going to happen with the pandemic next year, but we know in January we got Baby Driver 2. February we're going to do Jordan Peele's movie because like we said, doesn't make a difference to me. He's been doing good in March to my knowledge, right? That's when those other ones have been coming out. Or is it February, at the end of February?
I think it was February for Get Out. And I'm not exactly sure.
They probably went the other year too. Same thing. Or around the same season. But either way, Yep, February we got the Jordan Peele film. Nolan's coming out in March, and then we got Static Pocket on your birthday in April.
I would need to know who's doing Static Shock to see if I'm going to be
whoever you would want it to be.
Oh, okay.
So it's not Jaden Smith playing him.
Well, I mean actor-wise, I was thinking like director, but
okay.
Anyway,
Ryan Coogler. I think he's got a track record for that. It's a legitimate choice.
He's got a good ass track record. If I'm being completely honest, I'd be real interested to go see Nolan's film in the year because
he's Nolan.
It's Nolan. Love Edgar Wright. I could watch Baby Driver 2 streaming. I probably would want to watch it streaming mostly because of the fact that I could rewatch it again because it's an Edgar Wright film, so I know there's going to be shit that I maybe didn't catch the first time that I'll catch the second time and appreciate. So just being able to rewatch it again that quick and not have to go back to the theater, I mean, that's just being logical at that point. Static Shock, I just got a big fatigue with superhero movies and what they've been doing with superheroes, period. So that might be another one that, unless it's just really good, and that's probably going to be streaming. And then the third one, because I know I jumped around a bit. Jordan Peele. Same thing. It had to be like really compelling, and I only say that because having watched Us, I liked it. I really liked it, but it wasn't like it wasn't the same as like Get Out. Get Out was something that I would have went right back to the movie theater to watch that if I had the desire to.
Yeah.
Like if I wanted to, and that's the way I had to do it. Yeah, I'd go back to do it. But Us, nah. Us was cool. I watched it. I haven't gone back to watch it again. So unless this one just really spoke to me, then probably that'd probably be streaming too. So where am I at?
75% streaming. I named your favorite filmmaker right now, and I named him doing a sequel to your favorite film by him, and you're at home with that one. You're at home with the superhero that you specifically chose, and I'm not even doing this to like mock you or anything. I'm being dead serious.
No.
The Jordan Peele film, we kind of just threw a real film in there because we were fucking around with the date and stuff.
Yeah.
But the only film that you said you for sure were going to go see in theaters was a Nolan Western film that I just made up off the top of my head, and it was just because of who it was and given the circumstances. It's like if I threw a Tarantino film in there, I assume that would also be at the theaters, right?
Yes.
So unless I think one or two directors, and that's interesting, and I think that's more reflective of a lot of people than people think. I think there are a lot of film purists out there who believe otherwise, and I in my heart, I'm in the same boat. You know what I mean? Like, to be honest, I didn't see Judas and the Black Messiah because I didn't want to watch it at home, but I didn't want to go see it in theaters. So I just didn't watch it because I'm dumb. You know what I mean? I watched Kong and Godzilla because it was there, and there was a minute where I was like, let's see how the streaming thing translated. Like, I'm interested in seeing what this looks like at home for the first time. And I wasn't,
right.
I mean, I liked the film. I thought it was a fun film, but I definitely feel like I missed out on a lot. It could have been a lot more of a fun, forgettable film. Do you get what I mean? Yeah. But I don't know if I would have paid for it.
You got a lot of ones like that where you really need the ambiance of the theater atmosphere. Even if it's at home, you got to have the right setup. Like, that's a movie that I could watch at home.
Yeah, you want dimensions with the sound. You want to hear it bouncing around you. You want to feel the fights and all that kind of stuff.
You'd have to have a surround sound setup, like an actual one with an actual subwoofer. You'd have to have at least...
Yeah, that's your dog, Nino.
What do you mean?
It's a woofer.
Gosh damn it. Yeah. It took me a second to realize what that meant. I was like, what do you mean it's a subwoofer? Okay. Anyway, yeah, no, but like there's people who invested. It's kind of like with listening to high fidelity music. You could have access to high fidelity music.
Movie? Go ahead, you're good.
What?
Just keep going.
you could have access to high fidelity music, but if you don't have the proper equipment, you're not going to really be able to enjoy it. And it's the same thing with movies. You could have access to whatever film, whatever, source. You could have a film. What am I trying to say? You could stream a film in 4K, but if you don't have the right equipment to where internet wise it supports 4K, your TV's 4K, it's large enough, you have the right like position set up in your living room, you got the right surround sound. And again, we're talking on an enthusiast level of this, because same thing with high fidelity, you have to be an enthusiast to even care about high fidelity, or even care to pay the money you have to pay to have the speakers and a setup to do that, the proper amps and all that. So there's a lot of that makes me go like, it kind of just depends on what type of moviegoer you are. If you're more casual, then streaming's the way to go 100%. But I think I myself gave a good example where you could be very into a film like Edgar Wright film, Baby Driver 2. And the only reason why I say streaming is because, well, I also know what the type of films he has. I always want to watch them over again. So just being a fan, yeah, I'd like to watch it streaming because I know I could go right back to it whenever I'm ready. Next day I want to watch it again, boom, I'm there. I'm not paying another $18 movie ticket to go back into the movie theater. But then I guess there's the side of, if I'm a fan, maybe I want to support him more. Don't know. Oh, gosh damn it, this movie. Okay. At first I was like, John Cusack.
Yeah,
I couldn't think of it for a moment.
We were just talking about that. No, I agree completely.
But yeah.
And not to rush out of the conversation, but we hit an hour point. I think it's been interesting. I think we were able to get into the rhythm of things a little bit. I think that second spark plug really woke me up. So that was helpful. Thank you guys for watching. I know it's an abrupt ending. I gotta go do some things soon. Thank you for watching Sacred
We got
Time.
our point across.
My name is Dennis Kaminsky. This is my co-host Marie Starr. If you want more things Sacred Time, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Sacred Time Pod. Also, make sure you like and subscribe to stuff on YouTube, because that's what YouTubers say at the end of videos, so I think that's what I'm supposed to say. And then, thank you for watching Sacred Time. Remember, time is sacred.
It's not coming out clear on my phone. Is that supposed to be me? What is... Dude, that's not a mic. That totally looks like a dick. I don't... Well... Damn, and yours looks like a dick too. Like, you got to work on the mic skills.
Yeah, I feel like I did a very good job, and I think you're being way too critical.
No, it looks like you have a giant dick in your face, and then it looks like, I guess, it's like someone with a camera, and I'm just sitting back, and damn, my beard looks scruffy as fuck, which, I mean, that's fair. I haven't gotten a haircut in for fucking ever.
You're telling me that this isn't the same frame, copied and pasted next... Hold on.
And my hair looks way more thin than what it actually is. I got a lot of hair. Kind of got the shoulders right a little bit. But yeah, no, that's just... You gotta work on that, dude. I'm sorry, I'm not forgiving those mics. Those are poorly drawn. They're either one or two ways. There's three. They're either a mushroom, a chef's hat, or definitely a dick. And it kind of looks like a dick. I'm sorry.
Thank you for watching.
You look really happy for the dick in front of your face on that one. Like, you gave yourself this little weird smirk, and I don't know, man. Hey, but, thanks for tuning in. It's been Sacred Time, and as always, treat your time sacredly, and don't...
We're going to do my ending.
That shit. Okay.